Welcome back to Designsmith. Today I'm going to be continuing my Dream Concert poster series, and we are going to be designing a poster for the band Ozean. Ozean? I've heard it said two different ways by a lot of different people, so I'm not entirely sure. So if you know exactly how it is pronounced, or if you're from the band, let me know down in the comments. Before we get started, please consider subscribing to support the channel. Okay, so this band is quite a mystery. They only have 3 songs for you to listen to, at least as far as I know. But there's a lot that gets packed into those 3 songs, and there's quite a following behind this band. I'm not sure if they ever did any extensive touring, but I do know that they did do some shows. And if you got to see them live, then you have some serious bragging rights. But anyway, this is a Dream Concert poster, so I'm going to make Ozean the headliner, and I'm going to add in a couple of bands below it, ones that may typically actually be the headliner, but Ozean is going to be the #1 focus for this poster. All right, so I was kind of playing around with some typography yesterday for this, and I actually really like this font right here. I'm not sure why, but it just kind of gives me some really cool retro vibes. It may be a little bit Y2K for the time period, but I don't know. I just think it works really well. And I'm going to do this where I just kind of have them kind of crash into each other a little bit. Although I just realized something. If I took this right here, let's create outlines, ungrip this, and let's get rid of this A. And let's bring this E over here and rotate it. Yep, that looks like an A. So let's do that. That's pretty cool. All right, and now we'll just kind of bring these a little bit closer together here. The spacing on those letters I really like. So let's combine this together, and this will be like our headlining type. And just like in Dreams, things can obviously change. So I'm going to make it seem as though this is the logo for the band Ozean. And what if we lean even more into the fact that these kind of look like bubble letters? So I'm going to go up here to Object and Path and Offset Path. And we'll offset it by maybe 1/4 of an inch. That looks good. And then we'll swap the fill to a stroke. And let's bring that stroke up to about 20 points. And since the letters are nice and soft and rounded, we'll do the same thing with the stroke, but we'll align it to the outside. And now let's go in here and get rid of these little guys. We don't really need those on the inside. All right, very cool. I like this a lot. I'm going to go ahead and expand this appearance so that it doesn't do any kind of weird scaling. And then we'll select everything and we'll just unify it as one shape. Very cool. All right, so this is headline type. So let's go ahead and set this to maybe about 16 inches. That looks pretty good. One thing I want to go ahead and do is designate a space for the band photo. So let's go ahead and put this maybe right here, and we'll just kind of do some aligning. That's way too close. We're going to need probably about an inch. That looks good. And I don't want to go completely full width with it, so let's go to about 16 inches, and then we'll just go like to maybe 12 inches. That looks good. And we'll make it wider than it is tall. So we'll just do like 10 inches there. And let's give them some killer opening acts. So we'll say width right here. And let's go ahead and center this onto the page. And let's get the text down first, and then we'll figure out sizing. All right, so Ozean with Cocteau Twins, the Sundays, and the Cranberries. That is quite a lineup. That would have been incredible. All right, so I'm just going to spend a little bit here in kind of getting the text exactly as I want. All right, pretty happy with that text placement there. Now we'll completely swap the type and do something that's a little bit more traditional. Around this time, and definitely for these types of posters, you would see a lot of Helvetica. I know I'm breaking my rule here that I established for myself at the beginning of the year, but you have to stay true to the time period. I think we'll just put the word Starwood right there. And you know, let's make this a little bit smaller, and we'll do this, Starwood, Nashville. And again, we'll do my birthday. And let's just say that it was in 1997. And tickets available at all record stores. That way my dad could go to any record store he wants to on the way home from work, just like he used to. Yeah, 60 is good for that, and we'll just kind of tighten this up a little bit. All right, so we have the general layout here, so let's go ahead and copy this over into Photoshop, and we can apply some effects to it that will make it look a little bit more aged. All right, so the first thing I'm going to do is paste everything in as a smart object exactly as it is in Illustrator. And now I'm going to go back to Illustrator and grab everything that is not this black box here. All right, now I'm going to go in and grab things individually. So I'm going to grab the large logo first, paste this in as a smart object, and align it just like that. And now I'm going to grab the black box and paste that in here. Okay, and now I'll grab everything at the bottom because they're all relatively the same size. And we'll hit copy and paste it directly in here, and we'll line it up just like this. And now we can delete our original layer. Let's go ahead and be good designers and name our layers. All right, so now the first thing we need to do before we move forward is we need to change the colors of the top and the bottom layers. For the photo box, this really doesn't matter. To do this, we will double click on the thumbnail, and this will take us right here into Illustrator, and we can edit this right in here. And I'm just gonna bring this up to about 10% black because we're gonna be applying some effects to it, and we want those to be visible in Photoshop. If we leave it at 100% black, we won't see these effects. So let's hit save, close it, and go right back into Photoshop, and that updates there. And we'll do the same thing here to the bottom text. All right, so we're in here now. I'm gonna go ahead and drop the photo of the band right here in this spot. All right, I've got it copied to my clipboard. Now let's go ahead and select our photo layer, and we'll hit paste. And now the first thing we're gonna do is select both of these layers at the same time. I'm gonna hold down Option or Alt on my keyboard, and I'm gonna clip that photo to that shape. So that way it is now aligned perfectly with this, and we can expand this out and it will not go past that shape. So let's just bring this down to about right here. As far as I know, this is like one of very few photos that actually exist of this band, so there aren't that many options to choose from. But after seeing this photo in here, I think this works really well for the typography that we've laid out. All right, so now let's take this nice, crisp, clean type and let's make it look aged. First thing I'm gonna do is go down here to the background. I'm gonna add a solid color layer, and we're gonna go in here and make it like a really nice light yellow color, kind of a yellowish orange color. It can be really, really subtle. Already just doing that is gonna give us that nice aged look, but there's a lot of things that we can do to make it even more believable. I have this old paper texture right here. We're gonna lay this on top. You can find all kinds of things like this online, so we'll make sure that it covers everything. And now let's just kind of play around with some blending modes. I want this to have that nice early to mid 90s flyer look. Hard light is really good, although the color on it may be a little bit intense. So let's go in here and create a new adjustment layer right above the paper. And let's select both of these and let's clip this to that adjustment layer exactly the same way as we did before by hitting Option or Alt on your keyboard and then clicking in between the two layers. And now we're just gonna pull down the saturation, so it's not nearly as strong as it was before. And as you can see here, all of these textures are starting to apply to everything that's below it, even in the areas with the small type. And I'm gonna add another one on top here. This is like a cardboard type of texture. And what I'm wanting to do here is just kind of give it a look where it's a little bit damaged. I think overlay is actually gonna work really well for this because if you look really closely right here, you can kind of see that there are some defects, especially right here around where her face is. Of course, if you don't want them to show there, you can always hit your transform tool, right click, and rotate 180 degrees, and it'll show up in other places. So just play around and adjust for whatever it is you're doing. And I'm gonna move this underneath that hue and saturation layer, just so it's not so intense. And we can do the same thing here. We'll just bring this up to this area. And since we have two layers here where we're trying to control the saturation, we will need to add another one. And so we'll clip this one here and bring down our saturation pretty good amount. All right, that's looking good. Now let's go ahead and age the type. And we'll start with the top part here. The last thing that you want is to have all of these effects laying on top of everything, making it look aged, but still having very crisp and clean type. That's not at all realistic. So what we need to do is kind of burn the type into the paper. And so we'll do that by going to Filter, Blur, and Gaussian Blur. And for the larger types, you want to keep it like between a 5 and a 10. I think 5 is going to work just fine for this. And we'll zoom in on this and you can see this is already starting to blend really well with this paper here. And now we're going to take this just a little step further. We're going to double click on our text layer here. And I'm going to go down here to the underlying layer and we're going to use Blend If. So I'm going to hold down Option or Alt if you're on Windows and just click on that little left caret right there. And we'll bring it down to about maybe a 251. Actually, 250 is going to be the area where it starts to really change. And it gives it a really nice faded look. And it matches the photo really well here, so we'll keep that. And now we'll just do the same thing to the bottom type here. And the reason we kept this separate is because we had large type at the top and small type at the bottom. And you want your Gaussian blur amounts to be different. A 5 on this would be too heavy, so I'm going to bring this down to about a 3. That looks a lot better. And now we'll double click on this text layer at the bottom and bring this down to a 250, just like we did at the top. All right, I'm gonna select all of my paper textures here and group them together, and we'll name them paper textures. And I'm gonna group these together as well, and I'm gonna group the photo together. We'll just say photo. We can collapse all of this. And I'm gonna move the type right here where I can group all of the text together. All right, one of the last things I'm gonna do is create a top layer called grain. And we're going to fill this with 50% gray. So hit Shift and Delete on your keyboard and choose 50% gray and hit OK. And now we're going to go to Filter, Camera Raw Filter, and I'm going to crank up the grain all the way to 100. I'm going to leave the size at 25 and change the roughness to 75. And we'll do a nice soft vignette, maybe of -20 here. And then I'm going to change my blending mode to overlay. And that gives everything even more of an aged and distressed look here. And also, I just realized we have really nice clean corners here on this photo border. We can't have that. So we want to click on the shape that's actually holding the image, not the image itself. So click right here on this photo layer and go up to Filter, Blur, Gaussian Blur. And 3 looks good, but I think I'm going to do 5 just to give it a little bit more of a burn. And we'll hit OK. All right, so now I'm going to put grain in its own group, and we'll do that. And one last thing that I want to show you is if you want to change the color of the overall poster, then go ahead and do this. We'll add a hue and saturation adjustment layer up here at the top. And just by clicking on the hue slider right here, we can change the color to whatever we'd like. Blue would definitely be really cool for this. And you can also adjust the saturation, bring it all the way down to something like this where it's almost like a bluish gray. That is actually looking really cool. All right, so here it is, our Ozean concert poster featuring Cocteau Twins, the Sundays, and the Cranberries. That would have been a killer lineup and would have just been awesome to see, but it's only in our dreams, right? Well, I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope I taught you something in Photoshop or Illustrator today. If you liked this video, please consider subscribing to support the channel, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.